Believe it or not, there's a silent, microscopic war being waged inside your body right now. It's this constant, high-stakes battle for control. And the ultimate prize? Well, it's your health. So in this explainer, we're going to pull back the curtain and introduce you to the invisible invaders, and more importantly, the incredible army fighting to protect you every single second of every day.
So, are you ready to head to the front lines? Because, this isn't science fiction. This is a war that literally shapes your daily life. And getting to know the fighters, that's the very first step to really understanding what's going on inside your own body. Okay, so before we can properly introduce the armies, we've got to understand the battlefield itself. What exactly are they fighting for? What is health? It seems like a simple question, right? But believe me, the answer has changed a lot over time. Way back when, for centuries, people thought health was all about a balance of these things called humors. The early Greeks, ancient Indian Ayurveda, they believed stuff like black bile could mess with your personality or give you a fever. These were ideas based purely on thought, not so much on science. But fast forward to today, and our view is completely different. It's so much broader. See, health isn't just about not being sick. It's a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being. And who's the main guardian of that state? You guessed it, it's your immune system. So when you think about it, our health is really challenged on three main fronts. You've got genetic disorders, stuff we might inherit. Then there's our lifestyle, diet, rest, all those habits. And finally, the one we're really diving into today, infections. This is where the bad guys officially enter the story. All right, let's meet the enemy. We're talking about the disease-causing organisms that are constantly, and I mean constantly, trying to breach our defenses. There's a formal name for them in biology, of course. We call them pathogens. So what is a pathogen? It's actually pretty simple. It's any organism that causes disease. I like to think of them as microscopic saboteurs. Their whole mission is just to get inside your body, multiply like crazy, and just interfere with all your normal vital functions. So let's take a look at a few of the most wanted, shall we? First step on our invader profile, bacteria. Now, these little single-celled organisms are literally everywhere. And it's important to remember, a lot of them are harmless, some are even helpful. But then there are the others, the ones that are responsible for some truly nasty diseases. Yeah, bacteria are the culprits behind a whole rap shit of illnesses like these. Take typhoid fever, caused by Salmonella typhi. That brings on these intense, sustained fevers. Or pneumonia. That's when bacteria cause the air sacs in your lungs to fill up with fluid. And get this, even the plague, the Black Death that literally changed the course of human history, was all caused by one tiny bacterium. And if you want a perfect example of how sneaky these invaders can be, look no further than the story of Mary Mallon. You probably know her as Typhoid Mary. She was a cook, and here's the crazy part. She was a totally healthy carrier of typhoid. She didn't have a single symptom, but she kept spreading the bacteria for years through the food she made. It's a classic case in medicine, a real cautionary tale about how these enemies can hide in plain sight. Okay, next on the most wanted list, viruses. These guys are even smaller than bacteria. And here's what makes them so different. They can't actually reproduce on their own. Nope. Instead, they have to become tiny little hijackers, taking over our own cells to do their dirty work for them. And I guarantee you're familiar with the work of at least one type of virus. Rhinoviruses? That's just the fancy name for the viruses that cause the common cold. But of course, viruses are also behind much, much more serious diseases, like AIDS, which is caused by the human immunodeficiency virus, or HIV. And for our third invader profile, let's talk about protozoa. These are single-celled parasites, and don't let their size fool you. They are responsible for some of the absolute most widespread and devastating diseases in all of human history. Just take the protozoan called Plasmodium. This tiny parasite is the cause of malaria, that horrible disease spread by mosquitoes that gives you those vicious cycles of fever and chills. Another nasty one is Entamoeba histolytica. It causes a really severe intestinal infection. You might know it as amoebic dysentery. Okay, we've met the villains, that's enough doom and gloom. Now it's time to meet the heroes. Because your body is anything but defenseless. No way. You have an incredibly sophisticated, powerful army working 24/7 to keep you safe. And that army is your immune system. So your immune army is really split into two main branches. First, you've got your innate immunity. Think of this as your frontline defense, your grunts. You're born with it. It uses physical barriers like your skin and physiological weapons like stomach acid or tears to stop any invader from getting in. But if an enemy manages to break through that first line, well, that's when the special forces get called in. This is your acquired immunity. And this group is highly specific, incredibly intelligent, and it actually learns from every single battle. And this is where it gets really cool. The secret weapon of your acquired immunity, its absolute superpower, is one simple word: memory. See, once your immune system fights off an invader, it remembers it forever. So if that same pathogen ever dares to show its face again, the system recognizes it instantly and just launches a massive, lightning-fast, and devastating counterattack.
So, what are the weapons these special forces use? They're called antibodies. They're these amazing little protein weapons. See how it's shaped like a Y? Well, those two arms at the top are custom built to latch onto one specific invader, kind of like a key fitting perfectly into a lock. And once they grab on, they basically tag that enemy for destruction.
So now that we know all this, it leads to the big question, right? How can we give our internal army a strategic edge? How do we help them out and, kind of rig the fight in our favor? Well, the smartest way is to use that incredible superpower we just talked about: memory. That's the whole genius behind vaccines. A vaccine is basically a training exercise, a boot camp for your immune system. We introduce a training dummy, which is just a weakened or inactivated piece of the pathogen. This lets your immune system safely study the enemy, produce that army of antibodies, and, this is the crucial part, create those memory cells. That way, if the real enemy ever shows up, your army is already trained, armed, and ready to win the fight before you even know it started. But vaccines aren't our only strategy, of course. We've got other key plays. Simple stuff, like personal hygiene, just washing your hands, is a hugely powerful first line of defense. Then you have public hygiene, like proper waste disposal and making sure things are clean on a bigger scale. And when an infection does get through, we have tools like antibiotics and other drugs to help fight back. We can even go after the middlemen, the vectors, by doing things like getting rid of standing water where those malaria-carrying mosquitoes love to breed. But here's the thing. This war, it's not static. The battlefield is always changing. And our modern lifestyle, well, it's introduced some really unexpected new challenges for our immune systems. And this is a really fascinating point to think about. There's this idea that our modern, super sanitized lifestyles might actually be lowering our immunity and making us more sensitive. It's kind of paradoxical, right? By protecting ourselves so much, we might not be giving our immune system the regular workout it needs, which could be causing it to, well, overreact to things that are totally harmless. And that overreaction, it has a name you definitely know: an allergy. That's all it is, really. An exaggerated, mistaken response from your immune system. It's basically a case of mistaken identity. Your body sees something totally harmless, like pollen or dust mites, and thinks it's a dangerous invader. So it launches an all-out attack. And that's what gives you all those miserable symptoms: the sneezing, the watery eyes, the whole shebang. Which really brings us to a final crucial thought to leave you with. This battle for our health, it's never really over. It's this continuous ongoing process of adaptation. As our world changes, as our lifestyles change, and as the threats themselves evolve, the really big question we have to ask is, how will our defenses, both inside our bodies and out in the world, have to evolve to keep us safe?